My grandfather was very, very black, and he was very, very handsome. His wife was very, very beautiful, and very, very white. And sometimes I look at pictures of them and I think, my God, how did those two get together? Because he's a tiny little guy, very dark, and she's, alhamdulillah, very beautiful, but kind of big and lovely and very German in every way. And I just look at them and I think, no wonder your children look so different. And even her grandchildren, her grandchildren, our generation, I've been introduced to my brother over and over again. This is somebody you should meet, you love him. I say, yeah, nice to meet you, Salim. So how are you doing? And then we get talking, about 10 minutes later, people realise, you've met before? And he'll say, yeah, we met a couple of times. And then we'll carry on. So when did you meet? I met him about 26 years ago. I start thinking, but you're only 26. And then you can see the confusion. And then they click that we're actually brothers. Just because we don't have the same name and we don't look like each other doesn't actually mean we share the same mother and father. And it's many a time me and my brother Salim have been introduced to each other because we kind of live in different circles of the Muslim community, and we just kind of get introduced occasionally. Oh, you really like this guy? So, yeah, it's cool. I know his mum. She's like, yeah, the most perfect, beautiful woman on the planet. What? How can you speak about his mother like that? Just loved her. I just fell in love with his mum. What? And then it takes a bit of time. We used to wind people up a lot just by talking like that. But it happened many a time. My other brothers, they don't need to ever introduce us. They just look at us and say, oh, copy and paste. I'll show you pictures of my one brother. Copy and paste. Because we're identical. And then you see my cousins, and my sister Sarah, my mother, she looks, she says, how many Pakistanis have you got in your family? Says, none of them? Oh, but they all look like Pakis. She's Pakistani herself. And I'm thinking, what? What are you talking about? And then I look at my cousins, oh, I see what you mean. He has got some Pakistani features. And I didn't even notice my family, but then I realized I have a grandfather that is black as the ace of spades, and a mother that is white as grandmother that's as white as snow. We have all of them. And so I expect to have black grandchildren and white grandchildren and everything in between. Because innal arq tassas, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, innal arq tassas, because the blood will be transmitted and it might miss a generation. So choose. That's what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, takhayyiru li nutfikum, choose for your nutfa, your embryo, your unborn child, a womb that is right for you, because they will get some of their DNA from that woman, and likewise from. So that's what choosing a spouse I've got to say. What were the other two things? Mujahatatan, khalas inshallah. Right. Anything else about the second question of that Amir had asked us? Got two questions done and a bit about music as well. Happy? Yeah, I got a thumbs up and a smile. Right? I thought the guy didn't smile until now. Now I see what a beautiful smile he's got. MashaAllah. Right. Any other questions? You're supposed to be waiting on. Just tell me how many minutes I've got left.
I don't know.
He has no idea. Right.
So just keep on going.
Keep going. Any questions about that one? Or should we move on to the third?
I have my clock down up to 6 o'clock.
Okay.
I don't know how long we shall continue.
I think I was told that we continue on
It was,
recording.
was probably 6 o'clock.
He's the boss. He just told me. What? He actually doesn't know. What time is it now?
No, it's
Half.
17,
Half past
20, 30.
5:30.
5:30. Does he need to put money in?
You have 5 minutes.
I have 5 minutes, he says.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Khalas. Then you can go put more money if you want to, or you can say something and we'll see you another time.
I have time.
Right. If there are no more questions about it, I'll move on to the third one, which is love and marriage. Is that the third one? Right, again, we can talk about what the terms mean in Arabic. Because, where's Meta here? I thought I saw her. We were talking yesterday. How are you? I accepted your Facebook request and I now know who you are. Not that I wouldn't have accepted it anyway, but we talked yesterday about Arabic. And I was saying that actually the most important thing in terms of your relationship with your Lord is that you speak with the language of the heart. And the Arabic language might help you to communicate that at times. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. And you shouldn't force yourself in the same way that you shouldn't force yourself into trying being poetic in talking to God. You speak from your heart, and that's what's important. But the Arabic language does have some importance in Islam because it helps us to define things. Because Arabic was chosen as the language in which this was communicated. So sometimes we refer back to the Arabic language, not because we're Arab nationalists. In fact, we're not nationalists. I'm not in any way promoting Arabism, but the concepts of the Quran were passed in Arabic. So to understand that Arabic language is important. And actually the greatest Arab linguists were all non-Arabs. As-Samarkandi, As-Zamakhshari. All of the great linguists became linguists. There were great Arab linguists, of course, as well, but the greatest of all of them were mainly non-Arabs. And part of that was because they learned Arabic specifically for a purpose. And sometimes when I speak, some Arabs come up to me and say, I never, ever heard anybody speak like that. Because they just assume, well, the word hub means love. Yeah, but what does it mean? I can pick on how many of you? Hub. It's really unfair, isn't it? Just because you smiled, and I'm picking on you, so you're going to never smile at me again, are you? Right. But if I were to ask you to explain the word hub and what its linguistic meaning, could you explain it? You know it.
It would be the same as someone, if some of them would interpret love. It's the challenge of interpreting love, not the word itself.
No, I would want you to explain the word itself, because the word hub is connected to the word hub.
As in a sea?
And what's the difference between hub and muwadda? And what's the difference between muwadda and widad? Because all of those are translated as well. So going to the Arabic language, because you know what it means, but sometimes to stop and think, where did it come from? Because the word hub, I just mentioned, well, what's the connection with hab? And then that smile came back and his eyes lit up because he knew exactly what I'm talking about. Because there's a connection with the word hab. And he's thinking, yeah, I didn't think of that. Why? Not because he's not an Arab or because he doesn't know Arabic very well, because he does. And I can tell just by his eyes that when I said hab, he knew what I was thinking. Wow, there's a connection. Sometimes it takes somebody outside to say that. And the question was, what's the connection with the word seed? And what is the connection with the word seed? Why is the word hub mean love and the word hab mean seed?
It looks like that the love is there to grow, so like the seed grows up as well. So
excellent. Excellent. Is that what you were going to say?
No, it wasn't, but I was thinking.
What were you going to say?
I have no idea.
Right. It only grows if it has certain conditions. Any gardeners here? I actually mentioned one earlier on. It has to be buried in the ground. Almost all seeds are required to be buried in the ground, deep, in the dark. Hub and hope. Hope is something which is deep in your heart. It's buried there. And Ibn Ata'illah as-Sakandari, one of the great Sufi masters, so to speak, he said in his hikam, the translation of which is roughly that a seed which is not planted deep in the ground will never grow to bear fruit. I mean, what does it mean? What's it about? About love?
How much?
It's
You
about
put
love. Excellent. It's about sincerity as well.
Yeah.
Because unless it's deep in the heart, any kind of love which is not deep in the heart will not bring fruit. If it's superficial, it's just words, it won't actually be love. So, Habibi, Habibi, Habibi is what people... Habibi, you know, in Iraq, the word Habibi is just common. Everyone's Habibi. In Algeria, oh, you call a man Habibi, he'll beat you up. And I know that because I lived with an Iraqi and an Algerian who used to fight all the time over Arabic words. My Iraqi friend said to my Algerian friend, Habibi, Habibi, and he beat him, the Algerian beat him up. But he got his own back. And I won't translate this, I will just say to the Arabs how the fight took place. The other man turned to him and says, do you want to eat couscous? And that was the end of our living together. Because the Iraqi understood it in a different meaning, and he nearly killed him, to the extent that the three of us could no longer speak to each other. In fact, we needed to move out of that house and move into 3 separate houses. This is the Arabic language for you. Habibi, Habibi is not, it's words. Unless it's a hub, which is planted in the heart. So love has to be planted deep in the heart, and then it grows. And it's something which is deep inside you, but is manifest in fruit. And the Prophet, it's actually divine, it's actually part of your faith. If you don't have love, you don't have faith. If you don't have love, you don't have faith. لا يؤمن أحدكم. Not one of you believes. حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. Until you love for your brother that which you love for yourself. So you don't believe if you don't love for your brother what you love for yourself. So love is part of faith. There's another famous hadith about love. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى. Not one of you believes until. Complete the hadith, anybody. حتى. Until you love. That's another hadith. That's not the one I was thinking about, but that's another beautiful hadith. None of you believes until you love each other. Another one, which is even more famous than that, in the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون.
What you love for yourself, you must love for
I've said that one, so that's right. We've already got that one. We've got the other one. Until I, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, حتى أكون أحب إليكم. حتى لا يؤمن أحد حتى أكون أحب إليه من والده وولده والناس أجمعين. Until I am more beloved to him than his father, than his child, and all other people. What does this mean? It means there are different types of love. And when I said I loved his mother, the people around wanted to kill me. Well, how can you love the guy's mother? What kind of adab do you have? The fact is that it's my mother as well, but that love for my mother is completely different to every other human being on this planet, even my father. There's nobody who I love like my mother except my mother. There's nobody I can love like my mother except my mother. And likewise my father. Actually, my father's slightly different. There are teachers that I have that I love in the same way, maybe differently, slightly, and different. But the love that I have for my teachers is like the love I have for my father. The type. What it means is it's awe. When my father says, jump, I jump. When my mother says jump, I said, do I have to? And she says yes, and then I jump. And I jump higher, because she said I have to. So the love for the father is built around awe. And somebody asked Sarah, so how does Abdul Aziz tell off Idris? And then she stopped, she says, he doesn't actually. If he just says something twice, Idris does it. Whereas for me, I have to scream at him, shout at him, put him in the corner, and then he still doesn't do it. But because his love for his father is built around awe, sometimes I will look at him. Alhamdulillah, I have a daughter who's older than Idris, and one day she's very soft, and we were very, very close. But one day she was just in tears, absolute tears, screaming, really hysterical. She's young, absolutely hysterical. And her brother, elder brother, and her mother came running to her because they realized this poor girl must have fallen off down the stairs or something. Was like, she was crying in such a way that she'd never cried before. And she just, so eventually started to slow down, and then her brother asked her, what happened? And Daddy looked at me. And then he just rolled on the floor with laughter, because he thought that something so terrible had happened to her that she cried so intensely. So after that, every time she did anything bad, she would go, Daddy's going to look at you. Noor, Daddy's going to look at you. And I never, ever shouted at my daughter. I never, ever got angry with my daughter, because that's the fear that she had just by me looking at her. If I shouted at her, she'd probably jump off a bridge. I didn't need ever to that because of that awe that she had for her father. And that's something that only, I think, a father can have. And when he said, you should love me more than you love your father, that love, that quality of love should be to the Prophet ﷺ more than anybody else. Wal walad. And the reason why Idris is with me 24 hours a day is because the love that I have for him is actually different to the love that I have for his sister, Noor. Why? Because he's a child. He's a tiny, tiny child who lost his mother when he was still breastfeeding. And I can't